Hello everyone, this is Brandon Garrett from Snow Garrett Wealth Management with our December 2014 Economic Update. In this month's video, we'll discuss some of the economic events that occurred last month to give you some insight into what they mean for you as an investor. Please stay tuned at the end for a required disclosure statement. December was a fickle month for markets that forced investors to weigh positive domestic fundamentals against fresh worries from abroad. Let's take a look at what happened last month. Falling oil prices caused a lot of market uncertainty as investors grappled with what low prices mean for the economy. Since recent highs in June, oil prices have fallen nearly 50%. While cheap oil and gasoline are great for American consumers who have more money in their wallets around the holidays, it's bad news for oil producers. Countries like Russia and Saudi Arabia depend on oil revenues to balance their budgets. American producers need higher oil prices to make oil projects economically feasible. If prices stay too low for too long, it could destabilize many petroleum-based economies and shut down some U.S. oil projects. Holiday shopping kicked off in November, and despite a rocky Black Friday weekend, retailers hope that cheap gas and an improving labor market will boost sales. Sales between November and December are projected to grow 4.1%, which is the biggest increase since 2011. On the other hand, many stores offer large discounts to lure shoppers, which may cut into their profit margins. The Commerce Department released another revised estimate of GDP, showing that the economy grew a whopping 5% in the third quarter. This is the fastest rate of growth seen since 2003. Even better, the biggest revision was in personal consumption, which is the most important driver of overall economic growth. Now the question is, how much of that juice will be carried into future quarters? It's too soon to say for sure, but we hope that cheaper gas and a better job situation boosted the economy in the fourth quarter. Overall, 2014 was a good year for the U.S. economy. As the recovery moved into its fifth year, we finally regained all the jobs lost in the recession, and Americans started believing in the economy again. Looking ahead, it's important to be cautious about markets in the coming months. Despite periods of volatility, markets did quite well in 2014, and a pullback is possible. Fundamentals are solid, and we expect positive consumer sentiment and an improving labor market to contribute to gains in 2015. On the other hand, significant uncertainty remains about how weakening global demand, low oil prices, and interest rate hikes will affect the U.S. economy. I hope you've enjoyed watching our economic updates this year. We look forward to a very prosperous 2015 together. Once again, this is Brandon Garrett with Snow Garrett Wealth Management, signing off for the month of December 2014. If you have any questions about what you heard in this update or would like to discuss your personal financial situation, please give us a call at 817-596-9301. We'd be happy to talk to you.